So I was sitting there in the press box watching. It was April 16th, 2016. It was G Day in Athens. It was really, it's kind of a strange thing to say, but it was the turning point, if you want to call it that, of Kirby Smart's time at Georgia. He had asked for 93,000 people to be at Sanford Stadium. He wanted it to be completely full. And there were about 30 minutes, maybe an hour before the game. Uh, and there was, I don't know that I was certain that it was going to happen because it didn't look very crowded at all. Um, and we get closer to the game, and I'm sitting there with Fletcher Page, who's covered Georgia as long as 2010, whenever I hired him. And we were a little skeptical that they would get it done. But boy, I tell you what, in the last like 30, 20 minutes, probably, Sanford Stadium was overrun with people. And for the rest of the time, it was full, completely full. I would say until the third quarter. And what kept people interested, of course, was they had not seen Jacob Eason throw a football yet. I had. I'd been to Seattle. I'd seen Jacob throw in Cartersville, and then I had also seen him throw when I went out to Seattle to watch him play at Lake Stevens. That's another story for another time. But this is about 2016 G Day and why it was so important to Kirby and Company. I want to mention first, I'll be at Red Zone on Clayton in Athens, noon to 7, noon to close, so that y'all can talk to me about DAWGSTRUCTION, pick it up, flip through it. I can sign it for you. We can talk about the dogs. Everybody at Red Zone is getting ready for a huge crowd on Friday and Saturday. Do not miss out on this event. It's going to be a lot of fun. They have a lot of gear. And I know a lot of folks are coming into Athens. That's the place to go. Go to Red Zone. And we'll be there Friday from noon till close. And we'll also be there Saturday morning from 9 until noon. So get all your shopping done. We can talk about G Day. We can talk about everything that's coming up. This is going to be a big G Day for Georgia, celebrating a national championship and looking forward to 2022. Can the Dogs win the Southeastern Conference? Can they get to the playoff? Can they win the national championship? These are all things that we'll be talking about while you're checking out everything in Red Zone. It really is a cool store. And I trust them. You should too. But let me get back to the 2016 game. Um, so we're sitting there, and Grayson Lambert and Bryce Ramsey are out there the bulk of the time. I'll tell you, Ramsey did not look bad, but when I think that was probably one of Grayson's not great performances during his time at Georgia, if memory serves correct. I can't remember, but exactly. He didn't play as well that day as he could, as he did. Grayson was very, very, very up and down. I think everyone remembers that part. But here comes Jacob Eason, and the crowd was, hyperventilating to watch this guy who none of them had really seen. None of them seen him play, and he had a big play pretty quick, and it was a beautiful throw. It was just like I had seen in Seattle when I went to go see him play. I mean, I was talking about Grayson being up and down. A lot of the quarterbacks at that time were inconsistent, which was kind of a problem from Hudson Mason to Jake Fromm, that stretch of time. But with Jacob, when he was hot, he was hot. And that G Day, he was pretty hot. And everybody left thinking, oh, for sure, he's the starter. And, you got to remember, too, at the time in the East, there wasn't a lot of fear about what was there in the East. I mean, Will Muschamp had taken over a Carolina team that had been kind of not run into the ground by Steve Spurrier, but it was time for change at Carolina. Um, you had Tennessee with Butch Jones, who nobody really believed in. They thought he was kind of full of it. But as it turns out, he was a better coach clearly than Jeremy Pruitt, which I don't think was any question. And then, or at least some of us didn't have much of a question about that. But we knew Jeremy Pruitt's whole shtick. And then you had Jim McElwain at Florida, who looked like an above average coach, a perfectly fine coach who was nothing to fear. Kentucky and Mike Stoops, Vanderbilt, they didn't seem to be something people were really concerned about. And then Gary Pinkel was either wrapping it up or had just wrapped it up. There was a lot of change in the league at that time. Spurrier was gone, Mark Richt was gone. I mean, these were two really good coaches. But it was Jacob Eason that people were really, really excited about. I mean, everybody naively thought, I mean, I did not, but a lot of people naively thought that one quarterback would save you. No, that's not how this works. That is not at all how this works. You have to have an entire program. Um, and although at the time we were watching as exceptional quarterbacks, generational for their school, had come through. I mean, you talk about Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Deshaun, eventually leading to Tua, as well as Trevor, and then Justin Fields. There was a spectacular run of what were super gifted quarterbacks that were either high level or developed into being high level. And Jacob was viewed as one of those kind of folks. So when he got there at 2016 G Day, he was what's called the top of the funnel in marketing terms. He was what brought everybody to the show. Kirby, there were still plenty of doubts about Kirby Smart, but I think that day particularly was the day that I mean, I thought Kirby would be successful because I'd seen what he'd done with recruiting. I thought Kirby would be successful because he understood uh, that Georgia itself was not reaching the potential it needed to reach. That was a real problem. Georgia for a long time was okay with being okay. And he was going to push that. And I knew that the recruiting, getting back to it, was going to be such an important part. Because having my experience in college basketball and college tennis, I knew you had to recruit. If you didn't recruit, you could forget it. I mean, you just weren't going to get the job done, particularly in basketball and tennis too. I mean, shit. I mean, all these sports, you got to have talent. And he would change that, and I knew that. And as it turns out, that 16 G Day was what set the table for the class of 17, which included so many important players like Jake Fromm, Andrew Thomas, DeAndre Swift, etc. Those are just sort of people that jump out off the top of my head. But then it set the stage moving forward for Justin Fields and Zamir and all these other guys. It was the table setter. It provided the moment that moved forward from there. There were a lot of moments in Kirby's time at Georgia. G-Day was one of them. The 2016 Kentucky game was one of them. The 2016 Auburn and Carolina games, North Carolina, those were really big moments. Georgia Tech in 2016. There were a lot of moments at the beginning of this journey, the first 9 months, that were really, really important. But I don't know that any of them were bigger than G Day in 2016. And because why? It set the table for everything forward. If Georgia had lost to North Carolina, they'd have survived. If they had lost to Auburn that year, they'd have been okay. I don't know if they'd lost to Kentucky if they'd have been okay. They had to have that night. And that was why that stretch was so important. That last drive for the Dogs to go win it and preventing Kentucky from scoring a touchdown. That was at their final drive. That's why that game was so critical. Was it pushed Georgia forward. Jacob proved again that he could drive the field and win the game. He was really good at that. But if you didn't have 2016 G Day, you didn't have all of that stuff. And I think that's why G Day was so important. I'll be at Red Zone this week. Pick up DAWGSTRUCTION. The link is down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you at G Day.